Think about the moment you got your driver's license. Maybe it was the freedom of it, the keys in your hand, your parents finally out of the passenger seat. Now ask yourself, will your kids ever have that same moment? Because the answer is already changing, and most people haven't noticed yet. Here's what this video is actually about. Everyone assumes self-driving cars are some distant future thing, and that the whole "will kids need to learn to drive" question is purely hypothetical. But the data is already moving, the laws are already shifting, and some of the specifics are genuinely strange. So let's walk through what's actually happening right now, what's coming, and what it means for the kid who's currently 9 years old and will be a teenager when all of this hits its next gear. Let's start with something that already happened and barely got a headline. As of 2022, only about 25% of 16-year-olds in the US had a driver's license. Back in 1994, that number was over 40%. So the classic Sweet 16, get your license milestone? It's mostly already gone for the youngest teens. But here's the part that's easy to miss. Among 19-year-olds, nearly 69% were still licensed in 2022. So older teens are still driving. It's specifically the youngest group where the rite of passage collapsed. And the reason isn't what most people think. Everyone wants to blame phones, TikTok, Uber. But the biggest single cause was paperwork. Starting around 1996, states started rolling out graduated licensing laws, rules that forced new drivers to spend months in low-risk situations before earning full privileges. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The licensing rate among young teens didn't drift down slowly. It fell off a cliff. From 64% in 1998 to 40% in 1999. One regulatory change cracked the tradition almost overnight. So before we even get to robots, the shift was already underway, and it was caused by bureaucracy, not technology. But technology is absolutely accelerating it now, and the reality of where we are is weirder than the headlines suggest. As of June 2026, Waymo, the biggest name in robotaxis, operates in 10 U.S. metro areas, has about 3,900 cars, and gives around 500,000 paid rides every single week. That weekly number went up tenfold in under 2 years. They've logged 200 million autonomous miles. By any reasonable measure, this is real, it's here, and it's growing fast. But Uber completed around 13.5 billion trips in 2025. Waymo is still a rounding error by comparison, so the revolution is simultaneously exploding and basically microscopic. We are living through the awkward in-between, and it's messier than the tech optimists want you to believe. Here's a specific example of how messy. In May 2026, Waymo paused all freeway service. Regulators opened investigations after incidents in school zones, including a robotaxi striking a child at low speed. A Waymo got stuck and blocked an ambulance responding to a mass shooting. And a burglar actually used a Waymo as a getaway car. That case is still unsolved. This is not a utopian transition. It's a weird, bumpy, sometimes genuinely alarming middle period where the old system and the new one are both running at the same time. And that middle period is actually where the most interesting legal danger lives. So stick with me here because this part matters. Most people assume the scary scenario is a fully self-driving car making a mistake. But the genuinely unsettling legal situation is the handoff. What happens with Level 3 automation, where the car drives itself most of the time but can ask the human to take over? The problem is that in the final seconds before a crash, the car might try to pass control back to the human at exactly the moment when neither the human nor the car has any real chance of avoiding it. And when that happens, it might also pass the legal liability back. So the half-automated car can be legally scarier than the fully automated one. Almost nobody in consumer media talks about this. Now, the fully autonomous scenario actually flips the liability picture completely, which is one of the most underreported aspects of this whole shift. With fully self-driving vehicles, the expectation, already being written into law in multiple states, is that the software maker and the vehicle manufacturer are liable for crashes, not the human inside. Volvo went on record saying it would accept full liability for injuries and property damage caused by its autonomous vehicles. So the skill that's disappearing for your kid isn't just driving, it's being legally responsible for driving. That's a century of car culture getting quietly rewritten. The insurance side of this is almost absurd when you look at the actual numbers. California requires a minimum of $5 million in liability insurance for Level 4 and Level 5 autonomous vehicles. Nevada requires the same. Compare that to the few $1,000 minimums a human teen typically carries. Insuring a self-driving car looks a lot more like insuring a factory robot than insuring a 16-year-old, which is kind of exactly what it is. And one more thing about those driverless cars that punctures the magic a little bit. In February 2026, Waymo's chief safety officer confirmed the company employs remote assistance workers in both the United States and the Philippines. These workers handle situations the car can't solve on its own. Waymo says they don't actually drive the vehicles. They provide guidance the car can accept or reject. But the empty car your kid is riding in might be getting nudged by a person sitting at a desk 8,000 miles away. The car isn't thinking alone. It's just that the human is somewhere else. So what does driving actually become in this world? The best historical parallel might be the horse. Horses are still legal on most roads in the US. They're just banned from limited access highways and treated as slow-moving vehicles. There's even a weird legal quirk. A person on horseback can still be charged with a DUI. But texting while driving laws don't apply because a horse isn't a motor vehicle. That exact kind of patchwork, allowed but marginalized, legal but inconvenient, preserved but not really practical, is probably what manual driving looks like in 30 years. Not banned. Just increasingly beside the point. And instead of a license, your kid might just have a subscription. Waymo already launched a $29.99 a month membership called Waymo Premier, with priority pickups and ride credits. That's the first time a loyalty subscription has been applied to a car with no driver. The thing being sold is no longer a skill you earn. It's access you rent. Your kid doesn't get their license, they get their login. So here's where we actually land on this. The question, will your kids ever need to learn to drive, doesn't have a clean yes or no answer, and anyone giving you one is probably selling something. What's actually happening is a long, messy, overlapping transition where the old system fades and the new one fills in unevenly. The 16-year-old milestone is already mostly gone. The technology is real, but still small. The legal framework is being rewritten in real time. And the in-between period, the Level 3 handoff, the regulatory chaos, the getaway Waymo, is genuinely strange. If you've got a kid who's 10 right now, they'll be driving age around 2031. By then, Waymo's weekly ride count will likely be 10 times what it is today. Whether they'll need a license probably depends on where they live. Rural areas, probably yes. Dense metros, probably not. But the more honest answer is we're watching the transition happen in slow motion, and the outcome isn't written yet. If this kind of stuff, the real data behind big cultural shifts, is interesting to you, there's a related video on how autonomous vehicle laws are being written state by state right now, and some of the gaps are genuinely alarming. Worth watching next. And if you've got a take on this, whether you think your kids will drive or not, drop it in the comments. It's actually a useful signal, because the answer probably depends heavily on where you live, and I'm curious what the geographic spread looks like from the people watching this. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of thing, because there's a lot more coming on where technology and everyday life are actually colliding right now. Not in theory, but right now.